You created the Tulsa Flag.
So it's actually a misdemeanor to reproduce the city seal in any format because it was actually criminal to create flags of the Tulsa Flag for a long time. There's a lot of dark things and things that people don't want to address or talk about. I think Tulsa's still in a process of trying to figure out, like, how do we make these things right? Darkness will always come to light. For me, what I really felt is like there's just a swell of pride. People are proud to be here.
Whoa, let's get it. Whoa, clear out the room, I'm coming through, they wanna see what I'm about.
And that's the name, you know?
I'm on a paper route. Extra,
You gonna hook me up? Okay, all
Today's
right.
trying to top it. I put commas over bullshit. Yeah, I put that on mamas. Hey, they trying to block all my blessings.
Hey, welcome back to the People of Oklahoma podcast, where I talk to very interesting people that live here or have something to do with Oklahoma. But before we get into talking to the guests, I just want to make an announcement. I decided to split my YouTube channel, and so if you're watching this episode, you will see it on one of two spots. You will see it on Stephen Talks Oklahoma. This will be the last episode that's going to be posted on there. I'm actually moving all my episodes to its own channel, and that is going to be the People of Oklahoma podcast. So please do me a favor, go over there, subscribe, put on the little notification bell if you're watching and listening to this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all those. You got nothing to worry about. Just keep on listening and keep on enjoying the content. But the person I have on today is a guy that you probably don't know, but you've definitely seen his work. He is the creator of the Tulsa Flag, which I didn't even know that we had this competition, and we're going to dive into that here in just a second. But he also does a little bit more. He is the co-owner of two businesses here in Tulsa, Labor Divisions and Figgums. We have Jordan Wynn on the podcast. For the win.
Great to be here. Appreciate it, Stephen.
Dude, that was a great intro. I messed up on my last intro, last podcast.
So, all right, so are you saying this is the first video that is going to two YouTube channels now?
Yeah, so basically this episode I will post on Stephen Talks Oklahoma, but I'll also post on the People of Oklahoma podcast on YouTube. And then after that, it's all going to be on the People of Oklahoma podcast.
I'm honored to be the only
switching.
Double episode.
Yep, double episode. It's
so
the
let's
double
get
episode.
those views in there.
Yes, yes. And the reason why I did that is, so I have a good following on my normal YouTube channel, Stephen Talks Oklahoma. I've had that channel for a long time. And I really probably should have separated at the very beginning, but I wanted views. I wanted to get it out there. And I was talking to my editor, and he also helps with me with analytics. And we said, hey, I think we're at a point now that if we're going to separate it, we probably need to do it now. So we're like, okay, dang it.
It's a good move.
I know.
A good move.
I know. But, we're here. We're doing it. But Jordan, you created the Tulsa Flag. That's really cool. So when I was talking to Baron Ryan, one of our mutual friends, he was on the podcast, and actually this episode is going to be launched the week before 918 Day.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I wanted to have you on, so I can get this out there before 918 Day. And he was telling me, like, oh, I know the guy that created the Tulsa Flag, and I was like, oh, dude. Like, did they make this back in the 70s or something? Like, this guy must be super old or something. He's like, no, they just did it in 2016. And then he showed me pictures of the flag before your creation. And I was like, that's our flag? I thought that was like a logo, a symbol. So how did that process work of when you create? So it was a competition. Can you give me some details on that?
Yeah, the process it probably started with how bad the flag was previously. So
It's horrible.
If you've looked at the flag before, what we currently have, it was just the Tulsa City seal on a white sheet.
Yes.
And because it was a city seal and there wasn't a differentiation between those two designs, that's like Tulsa owns that symbol. So it's actually a misdemeanor to reproduce the city seal in any format because it's owned by the city. And that's not uncommon for cities to prohibit people from reproducing it. But unfortunately for Tulsa, it was also our flag. So at the time, for years, it was actually a crime. I don't think anyone ever got in trouble for this, but it was actually criminal to create flags of the Tulsa Flag for a long time. And it was just by happenstance. It was an accident, but That's where
Crazy.
it was. So that was an issue.
So let me get this right. So if I flew a Tulsa flag at my house, I could have been criminally charged?
I don't think if you flew one, but if you reproduced it, then it was a misdemeanor at the time.
That's crazy.
Just because it was the city seal and you weren't supposed to reproduce the city seal. So I think at the time there were only a handful of Tulsa flags even in existence. They had, I think, a ceremonial flag at City Hall, maybe a couple that flew over City Hall, but very few. I want to say it was just a handful that were anywhere in Tulsa, and definitely not outside of any businesses or libraries or places like that. To my knowledge, no one flew the flag.
Huh.
So when you look at the trajectory of Tulsa, even in the last 10 years or so, I grew up in Tulsa. So even rewinding further back than that, born in 87.
87. Where'd you go to school at?
Little school called Christian Education Alliance. CEA. It's no longer in existence. Shout out CEA. It was a small private Christian school that my parents started.
Oh, your parents started it.
Parents started it, so had a lot of interesting overlap between home and school. Yeah. Of dad being my principal and also being my authority figure at home. So had a little tension.
You couldn't get you couldn't get away with nothing. No. Were you a good kid or a bad kid?
For the most part, I was a good kid. I didn't really get into trouble until college, and then I got into a lot of trouble for years.
You must have went to OSU.
I went to OSU.
Oh, heck yeah, you did. I know you did.
Yeah.
Getting in trouble in Stillwater.
Got a lot of trouble there. But thank God I've turned my life around since then. So, but yeah, grew up going to small school here in town. And I remember growing up in Tulsa, there was just not, downtown was not a thing. It's like, you don't go downtown pretty much ever, and definitely not at night. And the cool place to hang out, I mean, even middle school, high school for me was, I think like Nordagio's over by ORU was like a cool spot, or we'd go to like Taco Bueno, or Star World 20. Like those were the cool places to go, at least when you're in high school. And I don't even know where, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s were going on weekends. I think it was a lot of just, spread out restaurants and, different entertainment places. So, when I look at the last 10 years, it's like, man, there's been so much investment that has happened in Tulsa Arts District, Cherry Street. I mean, even from 5 years ago, Cherry Street looks completely different. Oh, it's continuing to grow.
Cherry Street.
Brookside's so different. And
downtown's just like, it's almost like they just cleaned it off and just said, let's restart it.
It's almost getting too crazy on weekends now. There's almost too many people out. So
it's so cool.
So it's like there is so much investment happening in Tulsa. There's so much, for me, what I really felt is like there's just a swell of pride. Mm-hmm. People are proud to be here. Mm-hmm. And when you you met with Justin Harlan recently, when you talk to people that have a lot of touch points with outsiders coming into Tulsa, Tulsa Remote's a great program that's brought in 2,500 plus outsiders to move to Tulsa. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of those people, and you talk to someone that lived in Brooklyn and never owned a car, and they just decide to move to Tulsa one day. And you're like, what is the experience like? And they're like excited to be here and love Tulsa. And they're like, it's incredible. I never knew this place existed, or maybe I'd heard about it, but I thought it was all just dirt roads and people riding around on horses everywhere.
Carriages, horses.
Yeah, but you get here and it's like, man, there's a thriving arts culture that's growing, our food scene.
Yeah, and let's touch on that art scene, because you grew up here. Was it always like that? Like from when you were younger, like kind of like, I say hipster vibes, but like that's not a really good, but it reminds a lot of people of like a smaller Austin and Nashville. So was it like that when you were growing up, or did that kind of develop over time? Or do you remember? Like,
I probably couldn't give a good answer on that. I was pretty oblivious to Tulsa's cultural scenes as a child, outside of what was probably happening at the playground or the McDonald's drive-through or something. So,
because when I moved here in 2012, because I'm not from here, I moved here in 2012. That's like one of the first things I noticed, like kind of like going out. I was like, man, there's like a lot of art stuff and a lot of like, cultural stuff, music scene, art scene. even a fashion scene. So I just was curious if you remember any of that when you were younger.
When I was younger, not much. I mean, my exposure, I think, to the art scene, I didn't do a lot as a child. I took art classes. I remember there's a store called Triangle that did different types of art classes that I really enjoyed. But that was made for kids.
So you didn't grow up being like an artist? Like you weren't like really into art when you were growing up?
I tried.
You tried? Okay.
I realized pretty quickly I was not, did not have any God-given talents when it came to drawing, painting, anything like using tools to create art.
Really?
Manually. So yeah, didn't have a lot of that. Now when digital stuff came along and I got really into that, we could kind of get into
let's get in
that here in a little bit. But I think to answer your question, as far as the art scene in Tulsa, I have seen a lot of growth happening there, and it continues to grow. There are programs like the Tulsa Artist Fellowship when that was started here in Tulsa, and when they brought in more funding, more instrumental people into that program, has done so much for the arts community. There's Art Directors Club of Tulsa, does a lot, especially for designers, art directors in Tulsa. And early on, I remember when I moved back to Tulsa 10 years ago, some of those programs were pretty new or just getting started or didn't exist yet. I remember Art Directors Club specifically, it was a very small niche group of people, and you see the same faces every time. And now when I go to those events, they're like, it's more and more and more people. They're throwing big events, and there's just a lot of excitement and actually a real community being built there, which in the past, I think that's been a struggle for artists in Tulsa to find, like, where are my people? So if you are a person that moves here from Brooklyn and you have an arts background, or you're a sculptor or a painter or a graphic designer or something, 10 years ago, it would probably be really hard to get plugged in, where I feel like now there are so many different outlets, whether it's events or clubs or groups, where you can get plugged into things.
You think there's a single person that kind of helped that scene, or do you think you just kind of did it naturally?
Man, that's a good question. There are people like John Hammer. He's an artist here in Tulsa. Him and his wife Carly have done a lot for the art scene in Tulsa. They're phenomenal people, super talented, really kind. So I think people like that have done a lot. The people that run Art Directors Club at Tulsa, I'm blanking on some of their names. I need to go to more events over there.
That's all right.
But I know it's a lot of the same people that continue to give to programs like that I think they just don't give up. They just keep pushing.
Who did all the murals downtown? There's a lot of murals downtown.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Clean Hands. I mean, most people know Clean Hands. So,
yes, that was the one I was thinking of.
Guys like A-Wiz and Justin Bainey. I mean, they've got a whole crew. So Clean Hands is not just two guys. There's a bunch of guys that they've helped, I think, all band together and raise up a lot of mural artists. That's been a huge part of the art scene too, and that's a little more underground than maybe painting clubs or something like that. But things like that do add a ton to. I think they're just a perception. If you're going around downtown, or I mean, really any of these busy neighborhoods around Tulsa, you see murals popping up everywhere.
Yes.
And a lot of that is just, it's a handful of people that have just got really good at their craft. And it's not just Clean Hands. There's a lot of other kind of artist collectives. There's other companies that have come up that are doing really great work.
And there was one thing that, I don't know where it's at now. It used to be in downtown Tulsa. It was a glass blowing shop. Downtown. It was over there by the Valkyrie. Do you remember that?
I know what you're talking about. I don't know if that's.
I didn't know our glass artist was a big scene here in Tulsa, but I guess it is. I guess there's a lot of great glass blowers that come out of Tulsa.
I don't know if that place is still over there.
I think they moved.
It might be. It's probably a dispensary now at this point.
Oh my gosh, right? Oklahoma, we have a church and a dispensary on every corner.
Yep, that's how it is.
The wild, wild west of dispensaries. Dude, I've heard we actually have more dispensaries in Oklahoma than Colorado.
Per capita, Oklahoma has more dispensaries.
Is it per capita?
Than any other state in the country.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So if you're trying to start a business out there, don't get into dispensaries.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because everyone, when they first started, dude, it was insane.
A lot of competition.
It's insane. They just need to legalize that fully. It's crazy because you can get your marijuana card right next to a dispensary. Like they have shops where I was like, dude, just make it legal now. It's just it's a money grab. Yeah, it's a money grab. Government's making their money, so they're happy.
We can spend a whole episode talking about that.
Okay. So. Maybe we should. But so when you went to college, what did you get your degree in? You went to the great University of Oklahoma State.
I actually did not get my degree. I got very
close.
You
had a great time in college, didn't you?
I did. I got very close. I studied psychology, and I think a couple semesters I was pre-med. That made me feel good. Telling people that at the time, but then when I was going to those classes, it did not make me feel good because I was clearly not where I was supposed to be.
Right.
So I wanted to pursue psychiatry.
Yeah.
Had a lot of interest in dealing with like trauma, people dealing with trauma, and working with that, and started partying a little too much. So I made it to my senior year, and I had a steady downhill progression on grades. Mm-hmm. And probably just mental capacity, and dropped out my senior year.
Okay.
That was it was a challenge for me because I still believe it was the right thing for me to do. But at the time, it's like I feel like I failed. I've wasted all this time. I've wasted money. Mm-hmm. I know my parents are going to be disappointed in me. So there's all the negative feelings of like, this is a failure. Right. And it's not just like I screwed up, but I screwed up hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, getting screwed up. And then that all amounts to nothing. So I wasted years of my life partying and focusing on the wrong things. And I actually had a realization one day. I remember this. I had a realization one night that all of this effort that had gone into partying and all this stuff, like it amounted to nothing for me. Not to get too deep too early.
No, let's get deep. Let's get deep.
But man, I had like a come to Jesus moment of like, man, this is a waste of so many years of my life. And I've got to basically turn things around, and I have to choose a different direction to go with my life.
Was there a certain time? Was there a certain moment like where you just sitting drinking a 12-pack and was like, boom, like, yep. Whoa, really?
Yeah.
So, tell me.
Late one night, I was living by myself at the time, which was not healthy. A lot of friends had moved away.
You're still in Stillwater at this point?
Still in Stillwater, and felt like everything. All the energy I'd put into living life and having a good time was amounted to nothing. And everyone had moved away. I was alone and really felt that loneliness at that time. Basically like, I'm going to go work. I was bartending and waiting tables at the time. So I can go to work. And if I'm not at work, I guess I'll just drink at home alone. And it kind of started morphing into that. And that really scared me. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but here we are.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
That scared me because I'm like, that's not the type of person I want to be. I don't want to develop a problem like this. And I would say that went on for, I don't know, probably a few weeks or a couple months or something. And I remember specifically one night just feeling, I think just really sad about what I had decided to do with my life. And very clear that I was alone and nobody else is here to be with me. And this is what I've created for myself. Yeah. So at that point, it's really like, if I'm being totally honest, I just prayed and was like, God, you got to get me out of this town because I can't on my own. Like I cannot change. So I have to physically leave here. And that's kind of what started my, my path into graphic design and a better lifestyle.
So when you went to college, because you kind of grew up, I'm guessing because your parents started a Christian school, you grew up in a Christian household. Mm-hmm. So when you went off to college, did you kind of step away from, your religious and Christian backgrounds, or did you continue going to church and all that stuff? Or
definitely stepped away. I wouldn't say I stopped believing anything necessarily. I think I just kind of bought into the idea that it's normal for you to go off to college and just go have a good time and do whatever you want to. So really a lot of the what I knew was right and wrong, I kind of threw all that out the window.
Okay.
Just kind of like, I'm just going to live for myself and do what I want to do. Which happens with a lot of people going to college. You get a little bit of that out of your system. My issue was that went on for like 6 years of a lot of stuff to get out of the system. But the things that I believed, and it really made my own beliefs growing up. None of it was like forced on me by any means. That stuff was buried deep down, and I suppressed it and ignored it. And when I kind of realized like I've come to the end of myself at a point, that's when I'm like, okay, I've got to look outside of who I am to try to find purpose in life again.
Right. So it's cool you brought that up, and thanks for being vulnerable and talking about this, because I'm actually a recovering alcoholic, and so yours went on for 6 years, mine went on for 10, and I couldn't get myself out, so I had to go to rehab down in Rob's Ranch in Purcell, Oklahoma, 90-day Christian-based men's facility, and so May 27th will be 5 years sober.
Congratulations!
So thank you.
That's a huge milestone.
Yeah. Man, if you asked me back in 2020, May 27th of 2020, when I was, I entered Rob's Ranch on June 1st, I just remember sitting in my, in my room, just looking down of like, man, I am 28, sitting in rehab, got laid off from my job, jobless, have 2 kids, 1 kid on the way. I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, this is like, talk about rock bottom.
Yeah.
That's where I was. So is that kind of where you were that night when you kind of prayed? Were you at your rock bottom?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it very clearly. And I remember feeling like I have to call somebody. So I called my little sister.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know why. I'm closer with my older brother, but picked up the phone and called her. For whatever reason, felt like she was a safe person to talk to about stuff. So I basically kind of told her where I was at, and I don't even know if she remembers that phone call. But I was basically, I need to speak out loud, like saying like, this is what I've done. I'm not happy with where I'm at, and I'm going to change. I want a different reality for myself. So yeah, it was a process after that. Didn't change overnight, but there's a lot of things I gave up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Talk about that process. Like, what was the first thing after you hung up with your sister? Like, what was the first thing you kind of did, or do you remember doing?
Probably made glass of ice water or something. Hopefully.
Sober up.
Well, I started applying for jobs like crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, I've got to move, and I was looking everywhere. I was looking at outside of Oklahoma. I was looking for stuff in Oklahoma City, a lot of stuff in Dallas. I didn't want to move back to Tulsa at the time, because I always told myself, if I ever move back to Tulsa, I'm never going to leave.
Yeah.
And well, now I'm back and I'm never going to leave. So, I love it here now. But so, yeah, I really just started applying for jobs because it was really clear to me I have to physically be somewhere else for my life to change. I just felt like I was in a town that just felt dark. I don't know how else to describe it. There's just a weightiness of like, I have to break free from this city. So I ended up getting a job probably within 2 or 3 months, got a job in Oklahoma City. It was my first salary job. I was waiting tables, just living off tips for years before that. So I thought I had it made.
Yeah,
like I've got a salary. I can grocery shop now. I can go out to eat, more than once a month. So
what was that job?
It was a company called Element Fusion. They're not around anymore. They got bought out by NetSuite, and then NetSuite got bought out by Oracle. So they were just a little tiny 15, 20 person shop. And I was designing websites for them.
So how did you have a background in web design already and graphic design before? So is that what you're doing a little bit in college too? Is that kind of, or did you just like, hey, I want to go into graphic design. Like I'm just going to find a job and learn it on the go. I
started learning in like beginning of high school. So I think I was 14. One of my friends was building computers at school. So he built one and he got into a lot of the 3D modeling. So he was creating these 3D models of cars and spaceships. And I was like, man,
What year was this?
That would have been 2000, probably 2001.
Okay.
Something like
so
that.
This is before it kind of got cool. I mean, 2001, it was kind of like on the up.
Yeah.
At that point. It wasn't like what it is today. Like
this is like Zanga was about to come around.
MySpace.
Probably like pre-MySpace a little bit.
Yeah, it probably was pre-MySpace.
Right around that time.
Yeah.
So I had a friend that was doing all this like really cool digital art. And I was like, man, I've never seen anything like this before. You see a little bit of that in movies like Star Wars Episode 1. You see some of that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know anybody that can make that. Well, I had a friend that started doing that. So I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I knew it was super nerdy, but I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like this stuff. So he ended up helping me build a computer. I think it's probably like $700. Saved up for a while, bought all the parts, built a machine. Dang. And then he gave me my first bootleg copy of Photoshop. I've been paying for years now, but
yeah.
But yeah, started Photoshop, and back then I was renting books from the library on how to use Photoshop because there wasn't like YouTube wasn't a huge thing yet. I don't think.
No,
just wasn't a lot of resources of like how to learn all these tools. So I was going and requesting Photoshop books from different libraries to send to my library. And I was like reading tutorials of how to do stuff. And so it was really self-taught. That was all through high school for 4 years, primarily Photoshop. And then when I went to college, it was a handy skill to have.
Yeah.
So when we're throwing big block parties or a big Halloween party, I would design our event posters and we would design like merch up sometimes for parties. Like it was waste of that talent probably. But I'd do that. And then I started doing some websites for OSU, little landing pages. Had a couple classes where I'd get extra credit for building a little one-page website or doing some graphics for a professor or something. So I was really just kind of honing that skill a little bit more all through college. Did a little freelance work here and there. And I would say really like when I dropped out of school and had this very clear, like this path that I've been on has now hit its end.
Right.
There's no pursuing psychology, psychiatry, any of that stuff. Like that's done. So I said, okay, I've got to make a new path here. And I really felt the need to prove myself. I think, first of all, to myself that like I hadn't made the biggest mistake of my life and that I could actually salvage something from my mistakes and create a better future for myself. Mm-hmm. So design was like, okay, I'm already doing some freelance work. People have paid me some money. I remember my very first paid design project. I think I was 15. I did a website for a rat researcher, I think in Sweden. Got paid $200. Terrible website. I can still remember what it looks like.
You said you were 15?
I think I was 15. And some woman that researched did lab rat stuff, like studying effects of God knows what that they were giving to mice at the time, and did a little website for her to upload all of her research and stuff to $200. So I had little projects like that, or I'd have buddies that would have a little company or work for a company and just do little logos and stuff like that through college. So I was making a little bit of money doing that. So it was really clear when I dropped out of school, like
that was
this is a skill set that I can turn into a career, I think.
Right.
So I just went all in on like, I'm still going to wait tables. I'm still going to bartend. But when I'm not doing those things, I'm going to work as much as I can, get clients. I don't care what people can pay. I did a lot of free work at the time, a lot of stuff dirt cheap. I just need to build up a skill set, and I want to learn a lot of skills of how to deal with clients, how to manage projects, because I was really terrible at all those things in the beginning. But did that for probably 1.5 to 2 years or so. Somewhere in there, probably about halfway through, started being like, okay, I've got to clean my life up a little bit here. But I had a decent portfolio of design work. So that's when I started applying for jobs. I say decent. Today I would look at it and be like, this is the worst. I would never hire somebody with my portfolio at the time, But at the time it was, I was pretty proud of it. So.
And what year was this? This was probably like what, 2011? No.
2011.
2011?
Yeah,
Okay.
it would have been that year.
Yeah, 2011.
So applied for a ton of jobs, got some interviews, some good interviews, some bad interviews.
Did you apply just to Oklahoma? Because when you said you were trying to get out, I thought you were going to go to like Austin, California, and then you said Oklahoma City. I was
trying to go to Dallas.
Oh, you're trying to go to Dallas?
I had some friends that had moved down there. So I tried moving there, but the pay just wasn't there for how new I was.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm not going to be able to survive down here. But yeah, had some good interviews. I do remember one really bad interview was in a gas station, like a sketchy gas station in like South OKC. I don't even remember who that was with, but it was some design job. And they're like, hey, they're working on our office, so let's just meet at this gas station. It's literally like the booths in the gas station, and like you can eat your
fried chicken,
fried whatever food in. It was an interview in one of those booths, and I was like, this is not where I want to work at. But I had a lot of those types of interviews of just, you drive an hour, 2 hours somewhere. You just got to try and try and try. And finally had a good interview with that company in Oklahoma City, Element Fusion, and got a job with them and worked there for 3 years and learned a ton. Mm-hmm. But really felt like I was not challenged anymore.
Yeah.
I got to the point where it's like, man, we're playing video games half the day at work, which was fun, but finishing work at 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon is great to an extent where I'm like, I'm not going to grow staying in this environment. I'm not going to be challenged staying here unless I'm like really try to take on more responsibility or do something else. I just felt like, okay, it's time for me to do something a little different. And so that was when I started looking at jobs in Tulsa.
So you decided you want to come back to Tulsa?
I did. I had a couple reasons.
Did you meet your wife yet?
No.
Okay.
No. I met her in 2020. So I was single for quite a while there.
Oh, okay.
I was trying, man. I was going out on dates and stuff. It was with the wrong people, but
well, we'll get to meeting your wife here in just a second. So why did you decide to move back to Tulsa? I mean,
man, at the time it was one, I think I was having a hard time in Oklahoma City, really, I think connecting with the city as a whole, and finding a community there.
I think Oklahoma City would be tougher. It's just so spread out, and it's just the layout's kind of weird.
It's spread out, and I think at the time the creative community there are definitely like leaders in the creative community. So I knew, these art directors or these designers that are making this cool Oklahoma City stuff, or like the Thunder was really starting around that time, and people were doing like really cool Thunder artwork or merch or different things. So I would come across people and be like, hit them up. Hey, you want to go grab coffee, or could we go meet up? I'm just trying to meet people in the creative community and like build some sense of like a community of other people that think similar to me. It was really difficult to connect with people there for whatever reason.
Huh.
And that was, years ago. So probably
changed. Yeah.
Probably changed. But at the time it was just really difficult for me to connect with the right people. And maybe that was me. They just didn't like me. I don't know. That's a possibility. But yeah, I just kind of felt like it was another kind of like almost a dead end for me. Of just like, man, I'm having a hard time meeting people and getting connect with the right friends. And I also had at the time, my dad had started developing atypical Parkinson's, which is basically Parkinson's it's very similar symptoms of Parkinson's, except no treatments have any effect on it. So it's all preventative. There's no cares. I mean, we've tried a million things, nothing to actually help things or reverse anything. So that had just started around that time, probably the last year I was in Oklahoma City, and it got to the point where I was coming back to Tulsa like at least once a month, sometimes it's like every other weekend, just to be with my family and try to help my mom out. Mm-hmm. At the time, my dad's still around. Oh. He's like a medical miracle because he has lived like years past what they expected. It's taken quite a bit toll.
Does he shake?
He does.
Yeah.
He started out as like super hardworking, super strong work ethic. Every weekend it's like Saturday we get up at 7 a.m. and we're working outside all day long. And it was just like, I mean, he was really just a hard worker all the time. And kind of went from that to he's been in a wheelchair for years.
No.
He's got, I mean, it's a great story, and he's got a lot. He's been on local news for different things with the schools that they live nearby and stuff. But anyways, at the time it was living in Oklahoma City. I think I was probably on this journey of trying to find purpose and like meaning for myself and meaning out of life. And kind of felt like in Oklahoma City is a better environment for me to be in, better people. Wasn't, partying and doing all that stuff I was all the time. And but just kind of felt like, man, I've got other things out there that are more meaningful to me. So it was obvious with things with my father here in Tulsa, and kind of feeling like I'm not really being challenged anymore at work. It just felt like the right time for me to come back to Tulsa. So that was 2000. When was that? 2014.
14, yeah.
Is when I moved.
You're getting the timeline right here. 3 years after that. Did you find a job here? Is that when you started your businesses?
No, started the businesses. Just in the last 3 years.
Oh, okay. So you came and worked somewhere?
Yeah. So I worked at a couple different agencies here in town. So I worked at one, I think, just kind of getting my my feet wet or my beak wet or whatever the terminology is there. I worked at one agency that was, the craziest grind I've ever subjected myself to.
So you went from playing video games half the day to, oh my gosh, what did I get myself
into? Yeah, I remember where I worked at. There was an alarm that went off on its own every night at 2 a.m. I think it's 2 a.m. One or two. I think it's 2 a.m. It would the alarm would go off for 30 seconds or something, just to ensure all the doors are locked or whatever the system is. I don't know. And I can't tell you, I worked there for 11 months, I think, before I quit. And I can't tell you how many nights I was there when that stupid alarm went off, which is insane to me now. But that was the norm there at the time. I think things have changed quite a bit, but that was kind of the environment that I shifted into.
Yeah.
And so I went from, very lazy, moving at my own speed. I feel like I was doing great work, but no challenge, to like the most challenging environment I've ever been in. That place did a lot for me on the creative side of just like their level of excellence. The bar was set so high.
Yeah.
And so what
were you working on there? Were you working on websites still and graphics?
No, primarily advertising. So a lot of print work. So print ads for magazines, catalogs.
Okay.
A lot of branding. So doing logos. So it was just, you have to come up with a million iterations. It's not like here's your one logo. It's like, no, all three of you designers, you three art directors, all need to come up with 20 logos each. And so we do that, and you're like fighting it out for like, what's the best idea here? Got really competitive.
Do you get paid more if your design gets chosen?
No.
Do you get a bonus?
No.
It's just like an internal competition.
It probably doesn't work like that anywhere. I don't know, but a lot of competition. And
did you ever get your designs picked, or were you like never getting your designs picked?
Sometimes, I think a couple times maybe got lucky, but I was still new and young in that environment.
Yeah.
But what it built in me was like, one, I think like really reinforced the strong work ethic, because I didn't have a choice at the time. Mm-hmm. It was like, you have to put in some serious hours here. It was also big clients. I mean, it was brand names that you would know, that I was excited about, of like, ooh, if I design this, I know it's going to be in this magazine.
Oh, that's sick.
And I'll be able to see like my work. I think I think I had one ad, I designed the whole thing that landed in a magazine. That stuff was cool to see. But I think doing that over and over and over, like so much pressure, and it's these huge clients, there's this feeling of like, ooh, this is like, nowhere else is going to be better than this in Tulsa, because it's the biggest brands that you could work on in Tulsa. And you kind of get caught up in that a little bit. And I think what I started feeling was like doing work for people that were so disconnected. I mean, I'm creating work, the people that are, that I'm creating this work for, are people I'm never going to talk to. I'm never going to meet. They don't live in Tulsa. They live in some tower in some other city. and there's no relationship there. So I had good relationships with my coworkers, but I just felt like, man, I want to start doing creative work here in Tulsa.
Right.
Like I want to start working on things where I can have a relationship with the person that I'm creating the work for. Because I did a lot of that through college. The work was pretty shoddy that I did back then, but I at least had some relationships where you feel a little more invested in the client, and it's less of like, oh, it's this faceless customer I'm designing for, and more like, I can utilize my skill set to pour into your vision. So you have a dream to build this business or build this podcast or start this organization or this nonprofit. Well, I have a skill set that you can pay me for. So it's profitable for me, but I can also return that by adding a lot of value into the thing that you have a vision for. And I love those kinds of relationships. And so I think like leaving, I had a lot of challenges being at that agency. There's a lot of stuff with like my personal ego as well that was really getting chipped away of like, it was just a hard environment for me to be in, and I didn't do a great job at trying to keep the peace, I think, at the time. So leaving there I think was a really good move. I went to another agency here in Tulsa called Getwit. I worked there for
Getwit. That's where my buddy Colson, I think, works at now. Maybe. Getwit.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Does some development work there.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Getwit.
Or
Getwit.
sometime. Yeah.
How long? When did that open?
Man, they were. That's a good question. I think they started in like 2000. I don't know. I think they've been around for like 15.
Oh, really? I thought
16,
they just
17
started.
years.
I didn't know, because when you said you went over there, I thought they just opened in like 2019 or something. But they've been.
No, I went there in 2016. I think January 2016, maybe.
Okay.
And they had been around for probably 5-6 years at that point, probably.
They hire a lot of people from Atlas, don't they?
I think they have.
Yeah.
I think so.
But anyway, so you went over there and
went over there, hyper local. I mean, they did some national work at times, so it's cool to kind of scratch both itches at the time.
Yeah.
Of like work on some bigger stuff of like, man, this is going out to a lot of people, or there's like, I like the creative pressure of like, oh man, a lot of eyes are going to be on this. Like it really has to be quality. So I like that side of it. I also like working with the local stuff of like, sometimes you have a little more creative freedom when you're working directly with people versus like a whole team of people or people you can't even talk to. There's a lot more conversation around the creative of like what the vision is. So I can get a better vision from you of what you're wanting out of the creative. And then I can also have a conversation with you. If I disagree or if we stumble across a new idea that's unexpected, I have a relationship with you. So I can say, hey, these ideas we first talked about are good, but we came up with something we think is like incredible. And let me try to sell you on this idea. And so having that relationship really, I think, helps push creativity further. So was able to develop a lot of good relationships, excuse me, being at that agency. But so there's that side of it. The other side, I think, that was really beneficial for me, not only of just focusing on a lot of work in Tulsa, was understanding like structure with creativity. So I think a lot of artists feel like, I don't want structure. I don't want like my process is my process. And when you start giving me, hey, here's the 50 steps to go from 0 to 100 on this project, I think the artist mentality is like, don't get in the way of my process. And there's a difference between artists and designers. I think early on, like young designers really want to let the artist, the inner artist, like have the crown.
Yeah.
Of like, I want to fight for my ideas and my vision works best. And the more you get into just design as a whole, like it's problem solving is what it is at its core. And it's not me trying to express my opinion. It's not me trying to build my aesthetic or me to build my portfolio. We're really trying to look at what is the client, what's the problem we're trying to solve, and how do I solve a problem and communicate something through design. And being a Getwit was, I mean, it was 6 years of me being like steeped in process of really like giving a ton of thought into like why you're making decisions, being really informed on things. I think early years, I'm like, you have a car wash you need a logo for? Cool. Like, I'm going to go design a blue logo that has a wave flying over a car. Like, that'll look cool, right?
Oh,
Like, maybe, like, you might get lucky. But if I sit down and say, okay, tell me about your customers. Let me understand the types of people that come here and what makes you different. And let's like really dive into like competition. Who else is out there? How do we look different in the market? How do we make this hyper local to Tulsa or to your neighborhood? Or can we come up with a mascot that like you can utilize a ton in your branding? So maybe you don't have just a little symbol, but like if we have a dolphin, let's say, as your logo, well then if you're a car wash, for example, well, we can have like little dolphin things as you're driving through, or like our little air fresheners are the shape of a dolphin or something. And you can like really reinforce that. There's a new car wash in Tulsa that's like volcano themed.
Yeah.
And other ones are like spaceship themed. And like, so that's someone thinking about the brand and trying to say, okay, how do we resonate with a customer strongly and build something that's really informed. It's not us just saying like, let me just throw a dart at the wall and come up with something that looks nice. But we're actually very educated when we're making those creative decisions. So I learned a lot of that being
And you learned that at GetWit?
Yes. Oh, great education being there. So I owe a lot of my thinking to the people there and the intentionality they put into like educating people. So learn that. I think on the process side of just always knowing what the next step is was something like really drilled into me. Where in the past, like I said, the inner artist is like, let me just do what I want to and I'll like figure out how to get there, versus saying like, no, we have repeatable processes that we can put in place to know, like, let's say you say, I want a logo for this podcast.
Actually, that's so fun. I was about to ask you. Because my logo, like I've been working on it and I like it, but I don't think it's there.
Or if your brokerage needs branding, or if anyone needs that, it's like you can go to someone or you can call up somebody's nephew that has done a couple things in Canva. You might get lucky and come up with something.
That's where I created my logo.
Decent. Well, it's common. And I applaud people for actually going out and thinking about, I need a logo. A lot of people skip that step entirely. Mm-hmm. But I think what I've learned and what we continue to learn, especially at Labor Division, is like, man, having a process and a system that you walk through that you try over and over and over, and you refine and tweak and change things to make sure it works. Like the process that I have now has been informed by past agencies. It's been informed by other designers. It's been informed by books I've read. And it's got to a point where I create more options for logos than I ever have in the past. And it's a shorter timeline to get from 0 to 100 than any other process I've done in the past. And it also leads to the best work that I've ever done when it comes to branding. And that's all by saying creativity is at the core of all of it, but we have to put a lot of structure over that to ensure that we take the proper steps to land on excellence every time.
That is interesting.
So it's fun. I mean, I talk about this stuff.
Yeah. So what would you say from your Oklahoma City to your Tulsa to GetWit, like, which one really, do you think all of them had a intricate part in your development, or do you think one had more than the others?
Well, I spent the most time at GetWit, and I think their philosophy around creativity and process and just, I think the humanity side of just working with people, the relationships side of things definitely had the biggest impact on me there. I'd say the places I was at previously, like working in OKC for a few years, that just gave me some baseline structure for just waking up on time, going to work, like clocking in, clocking out, being responsible, hitting deadlines, just kind of like the basics of what you need to be able to check these boxes off, like learning how to respond to emails and show up to meetings, learning how to present work, learning how to fight for ideas in a respectable way. A lot of that stuff I learned those first 3 years. Yeah. That one like little 1 year at the other agency really, I think, built a resolve in me to like stick with projects. And it built my confidence up a lot. Just seeing how far I could be pushed. Like I didn't know I was even capable of doing work on this level, but people pushed me and pushed me and pushed me, and I was able to get there, and it was surprising. So that built a lot of confidence in me moving forward of like, I'm not faking it anymore. Like I can actually do good work here. That's a constant battle for all creatives of like, am I good enough?
Right.
Am I worth anything?
And that's probably the thing that's always on repeat because once you're done with the project, you start another project. So it's probably like a ever going, like, am I good enough? Like,
Yeah.
Like back and forth of like, oh, I just killed this project, or oh man, I really struggled on this one. Am I really that good, or did I just get lucky on that last one? Because that's the same thing with me, like creating videos. Because I create videos on Instagram, TikTok, and things like that, and I'll do a video that I think is awesome, but it doesn't get the reception that I think it deserves. And then sometimes I do a video where I'm like, oh, that's not very good, and then it gets a lot of reception, and it's like great. So yeah, I get that to a level. I
mean, it's something you have to believe in yourself. And whether you get the validation on every piece of content or every video, or for me, every logo or whatever it is, like our value and our skill sets and all those things and success are not dependent on if other people are like giving us the feedback that we want. It's nice.
Yeah.
You can request Google reviews from people is a great way to feed that if you want. So yeah.
So when did the Tulsa Flag thing come about, and how did you get involved with that?
Tulsa Flag we talked earlier about it really starting with a design that was problematic. It was obvious it needed to be fixed. So with any kind of creative project, hopefully there's a problem that needs to be solved. If there's not, then it might be an art project. But a lot of times there's just there's a basic problem that needs to be solved. So with the flag,
Did they have a competition?
There was a competition.
Okay, yeah. So did that just go out and like you saw an ad for it and you're like, oh, I think I'm gonna take a shot at that?
So there's some interesting overlap here, and everything was done properly. But at the time, Gitwit had Jacob Johnson at Gitwit, one of the founders there. He had this idea to redesign the Tulsa Flag. Him and another guy, Joey Wignaraja, a great guy here in Tulsa. The two of them had talked. I think it had several conversations around like the flag's a problem. Other cities, you go to Chicago, you go out to Santa Fe, you go to other places, and you see their flag everywhere.
Yeah,
and it's not just flying. People tattoo it and they put it in logos, and it's on buildings and it's in murals. Tulsa had nothing like that, so they kind of originally had this vision of let's try to change the Tulsa flag. That's not a small task at all, because you're bringing in city council, you're bringing in a lot of opportunity for people to have dissenting opinions. Yeah. So it's kind of a crazy thing to try to go change, because it's an uphill battle for a long time. So they'd had this idea to change the flag, and everyone over there, I mean, their minds are built on process. So it's like, how do you change a city flag? Well, they sat down and mapped out, here's kind of probably what a process looks like for how to do that. I think at the time they probably reached out to other cities. I'm sure we're talking to other cities that had changed the flags to get some insight there. Another angle for kind of how this all started, there's a guy, Roman Mars, if you ever listen to his podcast.
His name sounds really familiar.
Of course I'm blanking on his podcast name.
That's all right. I'll probably
anyways, Roman Mars did a podcast episode about city flags, and it was a live, I think it was like a TED Talk. I'm pretty sure it's a TED Talk. Talked about city flags as something people don't think about. So it's a really interesting TED Talk of like, this is design that's kind of in the background of all these cities, and a lot of cities have a flag, a lot of cities have a bad flag. So he called out in that TED Talk, like he brought up a whole list of city flags that were a problem, or like the worst city flags in the U.S. Well, Tulsa's flag was on that slide of like getting called out of this is a terrible flag. Not only was a design an issue because there's a city seal, there's so much detail in it, there's words on it, like outside of just the like you can't replicate this flag legally. it's just problematic because it was not something like a flag should be something like a 5-year-old should be able to memorize and draw it. You can't do that with the city seal. I mean, I've lived here for years, and I would still struggle I could get you something close-ish. I've looked at the city seal a million times, and I don't even remember what it looks like. So Roman Mars had called out all these cities, Tulsa being one of them. And I think that was kind of the impetus for like, oh, there's an awareness now that other people are seeing that we should probably fix this. So Jacob and Joey, I think, created a lot of the process and built a lot of that. Well, I'm working, for Jacob at the time, and loved the idea of this, like changing the flag.
Yeah.
So they kind of built out the process. And there was this early on after the process was put together, and I can kind of walk through some of those steps.
Yeah.
I will say, just disclaimer early on, I kind of felt like, it's a little conflict of interest because my workplace is kind of crafting the process of how we would change the flag, and it's going to be open to the public.
Right.
Anybody can submit. It's a blind voting process. Like it went through, I can get into the process, but I was like, is it a conflict of interest for me to submit stuff? Because I'm like, this is an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I want to try this.
Would love to submit a design. Is this a conflict of interest? But there were layers built into that of who can, like how you can submit and all that stuff. So kind of step one, other than identifying the problem and the opportunity of like Tulsa pride is surging. People are proud to be here. So much is happening in Tulsa. That we need this symbol that people can rally behind. Not only is it just nice to have a nice flag, but it empowers so many people. You think about like Mythic Press, like they've done a ton of Tulsa Flag merch and hats and shirts, and there's a lot of people that can benefit from having a symbol and a recognizable symbol that's free for anybody to use. So it's not just a nice flag, but there's so much other opportunities that can come with a great flag. So a lot of that stuff was kind of research defined. A brief was created early on based on, there's an open survey that was sent out. I think they had local news and a lot of PR around like submit your feedback of what you want to be represented in this flag. So there's some, because at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, you see it today with that Crybaby Hill statue.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if you don't get enough public support around any kind of creative project, then it's bound to fail or something. But
now, was that their idea, the Get Wit guys? Was that their idea of like, hey, we need to do out a survey for the public, or who's? So that's pretty smart.
Yeah,
that's pretty smart that they thought about that.
The team that crafted that together is like, you have to get public buy-in as early as possible. So the first step is not like vote on these designs. It's what do you want the designs to even include? You're not asking like colors or style.
Real quick, it reminds me of the story. Tulsa Oilers have a hockey team and a football team. They did a good step of like doing like a little competition of like, hey, come online and on Facebook and make a name for the Tulsa football team's name. And so all these people, like, there was so many comments. They didn't choose any of them, and they just called them the Tulsa Oilers. That's it was crazy.
Well, there's that like Bodie McBoatface competition, if you remember that. It was like a ship naming competition or something. Yeah. And I think Bodie McBoatface won. So
it just reminded me. So sorry to interrupt you, but it just
you're good.
That.
It's dangerous getting, I think, public opinion on things, but it's necessary. So early on, there was step one of getting public opinion. What do you want to see included in this? There's some obvious things of like we have the Arkansas River. We have strong Art Deco architectural scene here. So there's some things built in. There's events from the past. There's a Tulsa Race Massacre. We have like history with oil. There's a lot of Native American history here. A lot of it is not stuff people want to talk about, of like Tulsa's origin story. There's a lot of stuff that like we want to sweep under the rug. Right. But a flag is an opportunity to kind of tell the whole story of where we've been at and where we're headed. So that was step one of getting public opinion. Is an open survey. Just submit what you want to see. I think they really focus that on like what are some historical events. And then there's some wild card fields maybe you could kind of just throw in whatever ideas. Right. So all that was then built into a brief. that kind of talk through here's the basics of Tulsa, the Arkansas River. Here's some past events and some cultural landmarks or things like that. From there, that was sent out to the public. So it was an open design process of here's our design brief. So again, informing your designers out there, like this is what Tulsan said they want to be included in this. And from there is an open process of submit your designs. You try to get the flags to be a certain aspect ratio, and there's some limitations around what a good flag design looks like. So great flags, there's a list of.
So they give you that list, or did you go search and looked up?
No, there's a group called NAVA, National American Vexillological Association, something like that.
Yeah,
it's a city flag. It's like a study of flag design. It's a group, and they define these 5 rules. I'm actually gonna have to pull these up because these are important.
Yeah, because like when they put this all together, did you go research this, or did they give you like the brief and they also said, hey, here's 5 things that you need to keep in mind?
That was in the brief.
Okay, that was in the brief. So they gave you that.
It's things you like really have to keep in mind. So 5 principles of good flag design. 1, keep it simple. The flag should be so simple that a child can draw it from memory.
Number 1.
Number 2, use meaningful symbolism, which was built into that brief. It's kind of a menu of symbols.
Okay.
And add your own interpretation.
Okay.
Number 3, use 2 to 3 basic colors.
Okay.
Broke that rule for the Tulsa flag, but it's okay. Number 4, I used more colors than that, but it worked. Number 4, no lettering or seals. So
the frick?
That was our problem. City seal.
Okay. All right.
Number 5, be distinctive or be related. So
our flag really did suck. Our original flag. That like broke every rule, one of those rules.
Pretty close. Yeah. I think.
Gosh.
So.
And how long did we have our original flag for?
I want to say it's since the 70s maybe.
And no one thought to change it until 2016.
I think some people considered it maybe, but no real efforts to go change it. So, anyways, so there was the brief of, here's kind of the rules of good flag design. Here's what Tulsans want to see. So then at that point, like what happens is designers can submit as many designs as you want. There's no limit. It would go to a blind voting group, which is I don't even know who all was on that panel, but it was a group of different Tulsans with different backgrounds. I think it was like an architect, an art director, or like a creative director. There was, all sorts of different perspectives. So it's not just designers.
Right.
It's not just city councilors. It's not like one group. They want like diverse opinions.
It's like a jury of flags.
Yes. To try to represent all Tulsans as best as you can with, I think it's like, I don't know, maybe 10 people or something.
Yeah.
So those people did a blind voting round where every single design was formatted to the same 3D mock-up of a flag flying. They all fit the same mock-up, and they were all printed off on the same size on a white piece of paper. So that you can't go through that unless you know a designer's style. You can't go through that and be like, ooh, this is this person's and this is this person's. It's all blind. There's a lot of people that just, I didn't really know anybody on the panel. So anybody can.
And how many designs was there entered?
I want to say there's like, man, I had that somewhere. I want to say it's like 400 to 600. It was somewhere in there.
Holy crap.
I think that's right. Maybe 400. So all those get from that panel. Their goal was to get it down to a top 3 designs.
Okay.
Out of hundreds, and the submissions were everything from like literally Crayola,
like kids
drawings. I think there's a couple classrooms that all the kids submitted stuff.
Oh, that's so fun.
That stuff's like so cool. Kids being a part of that process and seeing some of that stuff. So everything from that to, refined designers, like people doing excellent work. So it kind of hit the whole gamut of people in Tulsa submitting, which was great. So after they get down to a top 3, what happened after that was then all of those, they made physical flags of all 3 flags, and then flew them over, what is it called over there? Centennial Plaza?
Oh, downtown?
Yeah, it's right out. It's right by the river.
Yeah.
Right where Riverside.
I think you're right. Centennial
75.
Plaza, I think.
Something like that. So they flew the flags there, I want to say for like a week or something like that. Had an open vote to the public. Here's our 3 designs. I mean, there was a ton of PR at the time. Facebook pages, of news. It was Tulsa World doing stuff, nightly news. I mean, there's a ton of eyes on it. Go vote for one of these 3 options.
And where'd they go vote at?
Vote on, I think it's TulsaFlag.com.
Oh, okay. They got probably more votes than they did for the mayor election a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, should have had a better turnout for that.
Yeah, there's
yeah, Tulsa World had more votes for the best barbecue in Tulsa than we had for the Tulsa mayor. So
did they really?
Get your act together, Tulsa.
Come on, get out there and vote.
Yeah, I forget how many votes were cast at the time, but a lot of attention, encouraging everyone to go vote for the flag. And I was fortunate enough in that process to have one design selected.
Oh, so did you submit more than one design?
I think I submitted 7 or 8.
Okay,
maybe.
so you can submit more than one design to the thing. Okay. Was this one your favorite, the one that they picked?
It was.
Okay, all right.
I had one other one that was pretty close, but out of the 2, I was like, this is the stronger one.
Okay.
I think there's more that can happen with it.
So when did they give you the call saying you're the final 3? Or did you even know? They not tell you and just said, hey, the 3 flags are flying down to the plaza, go see what the 3 designs were?
I'm trying to remember how it was originally announced. It was before that. I think they reached out to the 3 designers that had been selected.
So did they come out openly and say, hey, these are 3 flags and these are the 3 designers, or did they keep that hush hush until after the final?
Did not publish any of the names, no.
Oh, so even for the final decision, people still didn't know unless they're friends with you.
And I didn't even at the time. I posted a lot on Facebook, go vote, go vote, go vote, but didn't tell anybody what my design was.
Okay.
Like my family knew, but outside of that, I didn't want to try to skew things. I didn't want to turn into an online who can rally the most votes on their Facebook or whatever. So I was just like, go vote, because I want it to be a democratic process too. So anyways, landed in the top 3, was really exciting. It's just kind of
that's awesome.
What's happening? And I remember going out there when all 3 flags were flying over that little plaza and being like,
that is so
it's kind of crazy. The first time I remember going out there, taking photos and seeing it flying up there with the other 2 that were also good designs. But then I went to the public vote, and I forget how long that went on for, maybe a week or a few days, and got selected as the winner. I think I had 51% of the vote. So slight majority, but it was also 3 designs.
3 designs.
So it was a clear winner out of that process.
Do you remember what the second most votes were?
The 2 other flags,
probably 30, 20.
I can't remember what the other. I think they're probably pretty close.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's like, okay, this is the people's flag of Tulsa, but you have the biggest hurdle in the whole process, which is getting city council to approve it, which is...
Whoa. So they didn't even approve this process? Getwood just...
They were running the process of saying we have to have enough public validation to go to city council and say, please vote on this. I mean, the city council was close to the whole process. They knew what was happening.
Okay.
We're very aware of everything. So anyway, so that process, I think it went on for about 1.5 years, pushing with city council, working individual members, a lot of just Facebook comments, trolling. I mean, tons of.
So city council didn't approve it right after the election of the flag? They held off for a year?
I think it took over 1 year.
Really? What was their holdup? Why were they being such jerks? No, I'm just kidding. No, jerks.
Well, city councilors have a lot of pressure on them. So if anything comes up, especially around creativity, hey, go vote for your favorite design. Well, people will come out of the woodworks because everybody has an opinion on graphic design, anything. Mm-hmm. So city councilors have a lot of pressure. They may be like, oh, I like this vote, and 20 people called me today, and then tomorrow 20 people call me and be upset about the whole thing. So, so that was a challenge for them of even getting it to a vote of like, we got to hear from more constituents. So that went on for quite some time. And then finally got to a vote. When was that? 2018? 2017? I forget.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but went to city council. It was the main issue on their docket that night. They had, I think, one or two other topics that they went through pretty quickly. But people showed up. Got a lot of people to show up in flag shirts and hats, and as much as we could do. I had got a Tulsa Flag tattoo before it was adopted, so I'm like, oh no, please vote this in.
It's funny. Me and Monroe Nichols, he's one of the mayor candidates. We were sitting here talking, and I told him that I love Tulsa, and he's like, "You don't have a Tulsa Flag tattoo?" I said, "Well, I'll get one if you get one." He goes, "Okay, I'll get one." So we might get one. You should go get we might get one.
So coming out of those three flags that got voted on, everything went to city council after that. I mentioned a minute ago that that's the biggest hurdle to cross. So it's easy to get public opinion, probably too easy to get public opinion on what the flag should be, on voting for things. That last hurdle of getting everything through city council is a huge thing. So it's about a year and a half process, I believe, is how long that took.
Oh, wow. So it took longer than, like, you had the voting for the flag and then it didn't actually go into effect until like a year later?
It's about a year and a half. And I want to say the process to actually create the flag and get public opinion and all that was actually, I think it was a shorter process than it took just to have one vote in city council. So, wow. It's a lot for city councilors. So after it got put on the docket, I remember going into city council that night. It was July or August. It was very hot outside. I do remember that. Going to city council, a lot of people showed up. We had a lot of people in shirts and hats, and I had my Tulsa Flag tattoo, begging them to make this official so that my tattoo wasn't a mistake. But they open it up. So any of those major issues, they open up to who, I forget the terminology, but it's basically, does anybody disagree with this? If so, you have an opportunity to speak.
Did people come up and speak?
There's one guy.
Oh, tell me about this.
And you could go look this up on the city council archives because everything's recorded. I don't know who this gentleman was, but he came out swinging, and it was very, you talk about some like disorganized political speeches we hear from time to time. It was basically that for city council.
Okay.
So he showed up. I don't think there should be a flag. I don't like the design. I don't know what this stuff means. Just very angry. And I thought somebody had like paid this guy to show up just to make the opposition look bad or something.
Right.
It was very cringy. And they're like, anybody else? And they're like, nope. Okay, let's hear from people that are for the flag. And then they had, business owners, Cole Cunningham, that own Mythic Press, said, hey, these are some numbers we've seen. This is some economic benefit that my business has seen from this design. And a few other people that they brought up to speak about it.
So people were already printing this stuff and acting like it was already a city flag, even though that wasn't official?
It was. So once the design was selected, a lot of shirts were made. There was an event that they put together called Tulsa Flag Fest. It was, I think, it was before a Drillers game. It was like 107 degrees out this day. It was
a hot summer.
The worst day to have an outdoor festival right in front of Driller Stadium with zero shade. I think a few hundred people came out to that. It was a success for how hot it was. But you'd have different activations like that. Dead Armadillo. There's collaboration with them for the Tulsa Flag beer.
We had the Tulsa Flag
Shout
beer.
out to Dead Armadillo. Thank you for making that beer. I think last time I checked,
did you get a lifetime supply of Dead Armadillo?
Tony, where's that lifetime supply at? They last time I talked to them was probably 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, they were coming up on selling, I think it's like 1 million cans of that beer.
And you got no royalty fees on that or anything?
I should have.
Gosh, you
should have worked something in. I did. So I did that can design, and that was when nobody knew what the flag was. It's like, will you please make this beer so we can try to sell it or give it away at this 107-degree outdoor event? And they're like, sure, kind enough to do it. We sent them I put together a design for the Tulsa Flag beer. Now, I did sneak in my initials on the very bottom of the can, snuck in a little JW in there.
And is it printed on every can?
Well, they've since changed their label formats on those. And so it's like just cropped out the initials. But, you know,
do you think they ever caught it? Did they, when they started printing it, were they like, what is this smudge on the, oh my gosh, it's someone's initials. Like, what happened?
That may be why they cropped it out. I don't know.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
But anyway, so you'd see activations like that. I think like we pulled some funds together and printed, it was like 10,000 stickers of the Tulsa Flag. So those were just, I started going around to coffee shops, bookstores of like, hey, can I leave 100 Tulsa Flag stickers at your register and you just give them away to people? There are other coffee shops. Hey, every cup of coffee, like if you come in and buy a cup of coffee, we'll give you a free flag sticker because nobody was making them yet. So that helped spur on, I think, a little bit more activation and people coming out and supporting some local business as well. So there's a lot of that. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of visibility around the flag going into city council meeting. So I
you
think
had one person oppose it. Did you have several? Like, I mean, was there like
several
hundreds?
people? They had like put together kind of a group of people.
Okay, and they asked them like, "Hey, go up and speak for us."
Yeah, I don't know if you have to like sign up or maybe it's just like kind of an open forum. So anyway, so that city council meeting had one kind of detractor, a lot of positive feedback. And then they kind of go through 2 or 3 of the counselors spoke. So I remember Blake Ewing kind of had a whole speech, I think kind of prepared of like what the flag could mean and why this was an important thing to do and what this could do for Tulsa. And I'm blanking on the other city councilor.
Was he part of the Midtown area?
I can't remember.
Or was it not Langford? Who's the guy down south? I forgot his name.
He a little bit older guy.
Yeah.
But he stood up. Another counselor stood up and was saying like, he said, you know, he's reading off a lot of the negative publicity that the flag had got.
Right.
He said a lot of people say this is not a good design, and a lot of people say this, a lot of people say that. And he had this statement. He said a lot of people say this is only for young people. It's only something young people in Tulsa want. Older people don't want this, don't want the change. And when he said that, he said, but I got an email this afternoon from a lady named Priscilla Brown, who's actually my grandma. She passed away a few years ago. I did not know that she had written this email. I didn't know this was going to happen in that city council vote. She was a huge fan of the flag. Actually put a flag in her casket when she was buried. But she bought, I mean, our whole family, all grandkids, kids, she bought everybody a flag, and we have this huge family photo of everybody in a flag shirt. So she was a huge supporter of it. I didn't know she was going to send this email. So the counselor stands up, says, hey, people say this is only something young people want. Well, I got an email this morning from Priscilla Brown, and it says, hello, my name's Priscilla Brown. I love the flag, and I'm 81 years old. And he said, and that was like all the email was. And so everybody's like quick laughing in there. And I'm sitting in there with my mom, and I'm like, did you know? Because it's her mom. I was like, did you know she wrote this? She's like, no. Like, this is amazing. It was just like one of those really special moments, I think.
Oh, I bet she was super proud of you.
So he said, that's all I need to hear. So let's basically take this to a vote. And it was a unanimous decision from city council, which we didn't expect. There were a few people that they had a lot of pressure from constituents of like, do not vote for this for whatever reason, people cared that much about it. But there's still unanimous decision, and
I'm glad. I think it needed to be for it's like really take where it's gone today. I think I think it was good. It's probably unanimous.
So after that, it was just kind of like, well, what do we do now? There's all this work that's gone into this process, and then all the design side of things of like really trying to get this design perfected, and then all the city council, and then when they're like, it's good to go, then you're like,
okay,
I guess we're done.
So we're just
I guess it
fly
happened.
the flag now.
It happened. So
did they have like a big ceremony of them like raising up the flag at City Hall or anything?
no, nothing like that. I think if it passed today, they might do a little bit more around it. At the time, it was it's just kind of like it felt like a legal matter. I guess.
Honestly, probably city council's like, thank gosh that we're done with this. Like,
I'm tired of getting emails.
I'm tired of getting emails.
Probably.
So when you submitted, once you were the finalist and won it, did they have any like changes to the flag that they asked you to do or that they wanted to do to it from your design, or was that your original design? Like they had no changes to it. So
it was my original design.
So they didn't have hey, edit this a little bit, or city council didn't ask you to edit anything.
City council had no.
So they were just like
feedback on anything.
So that being said, what does design mean? Because there's more than 1, 4, or 3 colors. You have the star in the middle. What was your kind of inspiration behind that design?
Well, for flag design is really different. I love logo design, and there's a lot of similarities between designing a flag and designing a logo. Very different applications and usually very different goals. But they share a similarity of you have to have a simple symbol that can be used and changed and modified or whatever it is for a lot of different applications. It's got to work for a lot of people. So if I'm doing a logo for a company and there's 1,000 people that work there, they may have vehicles that it needs to work at a bigger size. It may need to work embroidered at a small size. It's got to be something like employees can remember what their logo looks like. And when customers look at it, they can recognize it after seeing it once or twice. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of similar design principles of just keep it simple. A lot of those principles I read earlier, those 5 things, there's a ton of overlap with logos.
Okay.
Well, thankfully, I love designing logos. It's my biggest passion outside of family and my wife and stuff. Logos pretty high up there on my list of things I get excited about. So flags are very similar. So the design for that is really how do we pull all this meaning into something that's so simple?
Right.
A lot of people think, and a lot of problematic flags out there, just from a design perspective, are problematic because people want it to be so obvious. Oh, I see this flag and I see a bison on it and I see this symbol and that symbol. And it's really obvious this is the Oklahoma flag or whatever it is. Where you really have to kind of get away from the obvious and use symbolism and shapes to represent those ideas. So the Tulsa flag tries to pull in a lot of different storylines and a lot of meaning into something that just at face value, it looks nice. It's a nice design. It's easy to look at. It's easy to use. It's easy to modify and, replace the shield with your own little symbol or shape. Mm-hmm. People have done a lot of iterations of it. So the process of doing that is thinking through these individual elements. So to break down the flag design, it's the top of the flag, we have the navy field of color there. Yeah. And that represents just Arkansas River.
Okay.
So that's a huge resource. We've got Zinc Lake now, and we've got
that just opened up.
So much happening with the river now. But originally, a lot of people settled here because of the resources that a river would bring. And so that's just.
I'm gonna grab my phone because I want to pull up the flag while I'm looking at it because I'm trying to think back, and I was just looking at it today, and then I was like,
I should have you draw it from memory right now.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. Okay. So the navy blue at the top was
navy blue at the top is just representation of the Arkansas River.
Okay, so that was your thinking behind that.
Yeah, and it's not just like, oh, this is a cool river to drive over. It's like that was a huge resource and a reason Tulsa exists here.
Okay.
So on the bottom half of that, you have beige. I'm a big fan of beige. Wear beige a lot. I have a nickname from the past of Beige King. I used to just wear beige top to bottom. Anyways, big fan of beige. But I needed to soften the design up somewhere. So not everything is like meaning everywhere. So I wanted a nice soft design. I didn't want a stark white. This is one of the only city flags with beige and not white for a color.
That's why a lot of people put white in their flags, is to soften up the flag. Is that why a lot of flags have white in it?
Different reason. I just always like to do off-white. If I'm designing anything, I very rarely use a stark white.
Okay.
So I want to soften the design up a little bit. So the beige is really just meant to represent kind of just the friendliness of people in Tulsa.
Okay.
Openness, friendliness. Some people say it's a stretch that's what beige means. Whatever.
Whatever.
That's what it means.
That's what it means on this.
The gold line through the middle represents the black gold found here.
So oil capital.
The oil history in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, Glenpool, Red Fork out in West Tulsa now. Rich history. It is a huge reason why Tulsa is what it is today. So what needed to represent that in there.
Oh, the red was what?
That's the gold line, represents the black gold or the oil.
Okay, so the gold line, and then we haven't talked about
the gold line going all the way through the middle. A lot of problematic history with that, but don't need to get into all that.
We can talk about that off.
Sorry, so there's a lot there. Obviously, Oklahoma, like this region, the history with Native Americans is there's a lot there. There's a lot of dark history there, forcing people to relocate here. And so I wasn't, none of this is meant to be like a political statement or anything like that. It's like, let's just look at the history of where Tulsa's from, like what made us who we are today.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of history with that. So that shield, it's not a dream catcher. A lot of people say it's a dream catcher.
Oh, I can see dream catcher, but that wasn't your.
It's not a dream catcher. It's meant to represent an Osage shield. So the Oklahoma flag has an Osage shield in the middle. And I actually found a photo of there's actually one Osage shield. I think they have it at the Capitol maybe, that was the basis for the one actually drawn in the Oklahoma flag, which is super cool. So that's kind of the reference for that shape. Again, it's very geometric. It's a really simplified version, but it's meant to represent an Osage shield.
Oh, okay. Why do you care if people think it's a dream catcher, or did you
I don't like that. You
don't like it?
That for me has always got into, and speaking to a lot of Native Americans about the flag, it's like when you start adding the dream catcher into things, it's cultural appropriation. And you see that. I mean, you drive through, you take I-44 up through Joplin and pull off at a travel plaza, truck stop. You can go buy a dream catcher to go hang in your rear view mirror or something.
I see what you're saying.
It's just like, it's not a symbol that
a lot of Native American,
a lot of indigenous people, it's just like, and it's like where that originally came from is not really true to a lot of Tulsa's history as well.
Okay. So did you know that before designing that you didn't want to do Dreamcatcher, or like
I never really had an affinity for Dreamcatcher.
Oh, okay. So you weren't even thinking Dreamcatchers at all when
it was always Osage Shield in my mind.
Oh, okay.
It just came out of like, oh, why'd you put a Dreamcatcher on there? It's like, no. So that's probably the biggest thing in the flag design I've had to clarify over and over. It's like, it's not a Dreamcatcher.
Oh, okay.
But so Osage Shield is the gold shield there. Inside of that, you have the red circle inside of the shield. That's meant to represent the Tulsa Race Massacre and the bloodshed that happened there.
Oh, so the red's the bloodshed from the Tulsa Massacre. Wow.
So again, it's like, let's look at our history. There's a lot of dark things, and people things that people don't want to address or talk about. Thankfully, in recent years, a lot of those things have come to light.
Yeah.
Darkness will always come to light, right? And I think Tulsa's still in a process of trying to figure out like how do we make these things right.
I think showing. I think through the flag of like, hey, it's not forgotten.
It's a small step.
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
So a lot more needs to happen there, but that's what that's meant to represent. And then the star in the middle is just meant to tie into some of our Art Deco history. I had some Art Deco historians tell me that star is not an Art Deco star. There's other types of stars that are Art Deco stars. So that's been a point of contention as well. That star exists in a couple buildings downtown.
This star does?
That particular star does exist in some of the Art Deco and some of the interiors of buildings downtown, one specifically. So,
because this one has an extra point, doesn't it?
Six,
than a normal
6
star?
points.
1, 2.
Normal stars have 5. That one has 6,
Okay.
and it's kind of angled on its side. So to me, it gives it good balance. But all those elements working together, there's like meaning in the colors. There's meaning in like the gold line. It does represent black gold, but it's a line to represent like drilling down and like the straight line that you'd go for oil.
Okay. So the point of the star is that what you're saying? Is it for pointing down for drilling oil? Is that
No,
what
just
you
like
said?
that, the horizontal gold line. It's just meant to like represent kind of like a
Oh.
line.
Oh, okay.
So all of it comes together. Just it's a mix of colors and shapes. It's all symbolism that points back to where Tulsa's come from, and it's kind of it's a summation of who we are as a city. And then where Tulsa goes and what happens after that is really kind of up to the people. So when the flag was approved, part of that, part of kind of the requirement in that process was the city is not going to own this. I am not going to own this. A business is not going to own this. We have to do a Creative Commons license to basically say this is free for anyone to do anything they want to with it.
Oh, wow. So like Mythic Press didn't have to pay to print shirts or anything like that. Hadn't had to pay a licensing fee or anything. They just, anybody can go print.
Anybody can do anything, which is why you see it everywhere.
That's cool.
I've had plenty of people over the years be like, oh man, you really should have capitalized on that, or you really should have tried to make more money on that. And like, maybe I should have, I don't know. But if you rewind to when that was first put out there, it didn't mean anything. Like it means something today because the people of Tulsa have embraced it and said, we want it on an ambulance and we want it on the side of our police cars. And I want it on my business's logo and I want it on this mural. And you see it everywhere. It wasn't like that when it was first released. So if we said, hey, $25 for anybody that wants to use this or $1,000, nobody would have paid anything for it because it didn't mean anything at the time. But over the years, as it's been slowly adopted, it gets meaning, and a lot of the meaning that it has of what this means to Tulsans is because of how people feel about the city.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good flag design. I'm biased. I think it's a strong design, but it wouldn't mean anything if the people of Tulsa didn't like it. And if there wasn't a love for the city that we could say, okay, now we have a symbol that can represent how I feel about the place that I live at or the place that I work at. We just have a symbol that we can say, okay, I want to put that in front of my home. I want to put it on my body. I want to put it on the side of a building. I want to put it on a business card or whatever it is, just to let other people know that I love the place that I live and I care about Tulsa.
So did you ever think that was going to be this big of a deal of the Tulsa flag of kind of being everywhere and kind of being a staple? You
hope,
yeah.
You hope that happens.
So how does that make you feel that this flag is probably going to be stuck with, or have stuck with Tulsa, like forever? Like this is like part of your like legacy. I don't know if you wanted to I think it's really cool, but like, this is going to be here probably after you're gone. That's pretty cool.
I hope so.
That's
what's
really
funny
cool.
is so many people opposed the change. And we always had to remind ourselves in that process of like, when it changes the next time, the same people will come out of the woodwork. So all the people that said, "Oh, we hate it. What is this? I don't like it." If you try to change it again today, you'd have even more people.
Yeah, I don't think you want to change it. I mean, I
don't think it's going to.
Yeah, I don't think it'll change
soon.
And so I liked it when I first saw it. And honestly, I didn't even know. I mean, I moved here in 2012. I thought this was always the flag. Like, I didn't know that there was a different flag. And then, I guess I started seeing it a lot more in 2017 and 18. It was like, oh, okay, I guess that's our Tulsa flag. Oh, that's pretty cool. And so I've liked it ever since then. But I think after you telling me the backstory about it, like, makes me like it even more. Like knowing what the meaning was behind it when you created it, of the river, the Native American, homage to the flag, Tulsa race massacre, the gold. Like, I think that makes it so much cooler to understand like what everything means about it. So I think you did an awesome job. I think you did an amazing job. What after they came out and announced it, like what were some of the social media comments on like what people said about it?
I was telling you before we were recording, like people told me at the time, like don't read the Facebook comments. I'm a bit of a troll myself, so I actually like really enjoed those. I'm like, let's see how far this can go. So yeah, some people said, oh, this looks like a flag from a communist country. We got communist comments quite a bit. Like, okay, don't know of any other flags that look like this from communist nations, but so got that quite a bit.
Didn't you say
people said it looked?
Didn't you say someone said it was a communist flag butthole or something like that?
I thought that was so funny because star looked like a butthole or something. So I'm like, that's great. Yeah. People are talking about it. So, I guess it's all good attention. So, what else? People said the shield looked like udders. We got that quite a bit.
Okay.
There was a guy that lives in Europe somewhere. There's a whole vexillology is the study of flag design. There's a whole subreddit for vexillology.
Every time I hear that word, I think of Big Bang Theory and Sheldon.
Don't watch that show.
You don't watch it?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Never mind. Move forward.
I wish I had the context.
Yep. Fast forward.
So there's this guy on Reddit in Europe that hated the flag design so much. He started, and he had never been to Tulsa, started a bracket system on Reddit for people to design. It's like 16 different flags, and it was like this voting thing to vote for the new Tulsa flag, and then he was going to present that to city council to fix what we had messed up so badly.
And he didn't even live here?
No, he'd never been to Tulsa. So that was really entertaining. We had a lot of ideas of how to prank that guy. We were like, we could set up a fake flag event. We didn't do this. We weren't actually going to do this. But we had this idea for a prank of like, what if we created a flag convention in like Vegas or somewhere, or like Cincinnati or like Milwaukee or something, and we can create the website, we can design the event branding, we can build an Eventbrite, we could do all of these things to make it look real, and then invite this guy and say, hey, all of our people are on Reddit. We see you're this leader in the flag design community. We want to fly you out and have you be one of our speakers for a panel for this event. And basically fly him into like BFE and just ghost him.
That would have been awesome.
With no return flight.
No, that would be awesome.
We didn't do that, but
yeah, probably the best. But
that was like, okay, let's have some fun with some of this. So it was pretty entertaining. I did at the time. I did create a secondary Facebook account. It was a guy named Everett McCaw. And I would go reply to comments on these news articles on Facebook. So he was is big, burly dude, beard, cowboy hat on. I think it's I forget. It was just like ridiculous country imagery on his Facebook. I would just post random stuff so it looked like a real profile. But I go comment on people like detractors or people that hated the flag design, and I would challenge them to like come out to my ranch. You should come out to my ranch and let's wrestle elk and go elk hunting and all this. Like, and I just like that was a total waste of time, and I probably shouldn't be saying that to the public. But I'm like, the comments were so ridiculous. I was like, I'm going to go have some fun with some of these people with this fake account. So it was entertaining. I think a lot of the crazy feedback, we were confident that it was a good design, and I think held a consistent vision for where it could go, and the impact it could have. That, you know, the negative feedback, if you're a designer, if you work in agencies, if you are used to getting critique and feedback and actually like require that from people, then like getting the negative feedback and critique, and I mean, some of it was actually good critique of maybe you should have done this or done this. I'm like, oh, that is actually good feedback. None of that like hurt my feelings. I really just kind of laughed about most of it because it was pretty entertaining. So,
well, I'm glad we had this conversation because I don't know if I told you off the podcast or before. Me and Monroe Nichols, he came on my podcast. We made a deal that if I got the Tulsa tattoo, or if he got the Tulsa tattoo, I would get the Tulsa tattoo. So I think he's going to do it to make me get a tattoo. So it's good hearing the backstory because now I feel better about getting the tattoo. So Sarah, I feel better getting the tattoo. This will be actually my first tattoo.
Okay.
So it's going to be a picture of your flag design.
Sorry.
So
sorry about that.
No, man, I feel good about it. I feel really good about, you know, getting it. So before we jump off of here, like what are you doing now real quick? Where can people find you? Because obviously you don't design flags for a living. I guess you could.
I've thought about it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of clients out there.
You're right. So.
Right. Now, I mean, today I have an agency here in Tulsa called Labor Division. So we're a little over 3 years old now. It's Jeremy Diamond that owns Welltown Brewing downtown. A lot of people know his face from Instagram Reels and TikTok as well. So we partnered up about 3 years ago. Started Labor Division. So we really focus on branding, video storytelling, and websites. So we have 6 of us up there now. Really good team. Man, we've got good people up there. So yeah, if anybody's needing any of those services, we bring a lot of passion in what we work on, and really try to keep our work here in Tulsa. Try to pour back as much as we can of the skills we've been blessed with back into helping other people make Tulsa better as well.
So that's called Labor Divisions, and then you have one other one. What was the
Figgums is a new little. It kind of started out as a side project. Figgums. Figgums. It's a made up word. Doesn't mean anything. It's like an online art gallery. So we have a website that we sell art on, and it's me and my wife that do everything. And then we primarily sell on Etsy as well.
Okay.
So it's a lot of impressionist style, like paintings, artworks. We really try to create art that is affordable, that can really, when you think about people's homes, it's like everyone wants a good vibe. I feel like the home my wife and I have kind of created through interior design and artwork and different things, it's got a vibe. It just feels good being at home. And it's hard to build that. So art is a huge piece of that. The problem is like finding good art, knowing how to frame stuff, and like getting it at an affordable price is a challenge. So we created Figgums to be an art gallery where you can kind of create a good vibe at home for an affordable price. So we have a lot of impressionist artwork, got a lot of Southwest style stuff. And I just started building out a national park series. Taking a lot of time. I have about 25 of them done. I got to get to about 40 more.
So there are pieces about national parks?
Yeah, it's like national parks posters. Well, we do posters, and then most of them we have set up of like canvases and framed canvases as well.
I'm going to check that out. That's really interesting. Do you guys have Instagram and all that?
Yeah. Shop Figgums on Instagram. So it's newer. We started that I think we launched in March. But we have a big vision for it. We have a lot of big goals for what that'll turn into, and we're slowly working our way there.
Sweet.
Just trying to develop another stream of income.
Yeah.
That revolves around creating art.
Right.
So it's been fun.
Man, dude, that's great. And then okay. Yeah. So, man, I think that's it, man. This would be my longest podcast to date. I was looking at my notes. I was like, I mean, honestly, like I didn't ask any of my questions I was originally going to ask you, but we got there through story, and I like that. I like just having a conversation more than just an interview. Just talking. So, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have a personal Instagram that people can reach out to you, or do you want them to just go to your?
I've got a personal Instagram. There's nothing that the public's probably that interested in.
No,
there. So,
But if they want to, if they need help with creating some labor divisions, or if they want to go look at some awesome art, it's Figgums.
Yeah.
So
if you need a logo, if you need a flag, let me know. But yeah, I appreciate you letting me on here. I felt like for a long time, this is actually something I've been kind of working through with my business coaches. For a long time, I felt like I just kind of ramble on and on and on. And what I've realized when it comes to design, there's just a lot of passion in here.
Yeah.
About logos, about branding, about flags, about Tulsa. So man, I can talk all day about those things because I really love everything we're talking about. Man, it's just stuff that I really care about and I have a lot of passion for. So appreciate you.
And I wanted to give
indulging me, and
I want to make sure your story is out there about how this all came about, because I think it's really interesting and I think it's not out there enough. So.
Well, I appreciate it. Next time we'll talk burgers.
Yes.
We didn't even get to burgers.
Didn't even touch on burgers.
Next time.
All right, Jordan. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Man.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Steven.